Thank you. I like these lights because I can't see any of you. So there is a demographic of people that are very interesting. They are relentless and fearless in their pursuits of what they want. They fail with frequency, but they just don't care. In fact, New York University did a study on this group, and they found that this group of people will have a similar goal at some point. And as they are striving to obtain that goal, on average, they fail 17 times an hour. The group I'm speaking of, if my thing will work, is toddlers. So those of us that have toddlers know, and those of us that want toddlers are going to learn that toddlers are not denied. At one point, most of us were toddlers, and we were fearless. And as we went through the process of learning to run, we first started with being able to crawl, and even before that, being able to scoot, and then from there, being able to stand, and then to walk, and then we found the joy of running because we could escape people. Now, somewhere along the way, and I think John kind of hit that, is that we start to become fearful. And there is a special word for it that I can't pronounce because I'm not smart enough, and I don't care to pronounce it. But there are symptoms of this feeling or fear of failure. And the symptoms come from within inside of us. We perceive how we're going to look, or we perceive the risk is too great, or we perceive how others will judge us. And because of that, we become fearful of failure. And what I will say is that failure doesn't care about whether we are successful or not. All that failure is doing is showing us the steps we need to change in order to obtain the prize that we are seeking. Failure is going to help us obtain the mental toughness and the wisdom that is required for us to be successful. In my life, I've been very good at failure. And from it, I've had levels of success for which I'm grateful. And as I've muddled through this, I have come to an understanding that as I face my failures, there's 4 steps. So while I appreciate failure, I also know that really that's the line in the sand, and that we now need to learn to run. And for me, there's 4 things that I do to overcome my failures, and I want to share those with you tonight. The first one, be kind. When you see a toddler that is struggling and is on the verge of falling, the reaction is to try to catch the child before they hit the ground. And if we don't, and they hit the ground, we'll quickly pick them up, brush them off, make sure they're okay, and give them words of encouragement and stand them back up on their feet. And I think that trait is something that we need to take with us through our lives. Recently in our community, there was a 13-year-old girl who was getting her school lunch. And as she went to check out, her balance was in the negative, and so they didn't allow her to have her lunch. Now, there was another little girl behind her that watched this. And this 13-year-old, imagine that you were her and what you would do, and she left the lunchroom. And this other girl who was in line finished buying her lunch, set her food down, and went and found her friend. And had to coax her back to come back to the lunchroom, where she then shared her lunch with her. Now, there was a lot of outrage to this, but really the act of kindness that occurred told another human being that they were important. But more importantly, that act of kindness changed policy so that that won't ever happen again in that school. On the other side of being kind, when we are the ones going through failure, there is significant stress and irritability that can occur. We still need to be kind to those around us and to those that we interact with. The world does not revolve around us. So it is never okay to take out our frustrations on those around us. Being kind strengthens relationships, and overcoming failure, it needs strong relationships with people around us. Step number 2, don't give up. Have you ever been between the wall and the crapper? I know I have. In In 2002, my wife Allison and I were facing significant financial problems, and we were about to lose our home. Luckily, we were able to get it sold before the bank was foreclosed on. At that same time, my parents had invited us to move into their home. So here I am, married with 3 children and 1 on the way, and I had extreme feelings of failure. It was not a fun time. But we moved into my parents' basement, and at this point trying to figure out what the next chapter in life would be. My dad is diabetic, and he suffered kidney failure around this time. And when your kidneys don't work, you have 3 options. You can get a kidney transplant, you can go on dialysis, or you can die. And so my dad was on a list to be able to get a kidney. And in the meantime, started dialysis. And the dialysis that he chose was an in-home method that required him to hook up to a machine 4 times a day to take the toxins out of his system. But the amount of help that he needed was significant, just being able to stand and walk and get places. So Allison and I discussed it, and we decided that she would go back to work while I stayed home with the children and helped my dad. Now, it was fortuitous because there was a former employer of my wife Allison's that had opened a cosmetology school years before, and she'd actually worked in that school. And now he was splitting from his partner and wanting to open another school, so he offered her the position of director of education, which she took. So she was off creating a new business and getting after things, and my days consisted of getting up early, getting kids breakfast, helping my dad with dialysis. I had 2 kids in diapers, so that I had to change diapers, and then that was a significant occurrence throughout the day. So making kids lunches, getting kids to school, getting my dad to doctor's appointments, picking kids up from school, helping with homework, and it was constant. One day my older brother called me and asked me to come down and visit him, and so I did, and we were talking, and he said, "How are you doing?" And when I went to answer him, I started to cry. And I'm not someone that cries, especially not in front of my older brother. And so I gained my composure, and then I went to answer the question again, and I started to cry. And so we sat there in silence as I'm fighting back the tears, and he finally says, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "Because it's never going to get better." If you haven't been there, I will tell you that it is a painful place to be. And it is hard. But my brother, in giving words of kindness, just said, "Yes, it will get better." Not knowing how, but that helped me. So from there, life went on. And my dad needed a kidney transplant. And my younger brother happened to have an extra one lying around, so he gave that one to my dad. My dad started down the road to improvement. My wife's career was going in a very positive direction. We were able to move out of my parents' basement, and we stayed nearby, rented a home nearby, because my dad still needed some level of help. And at that point, I decided that I wanted to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And I didn't know what that was, but I wanted my own business because I was sick and tired of relying on businesses. And so I wanted my own business. I was looking into franchises. I was looking into things that I thought that I could do that would be interesting. And one day, Allison came home from working at the academy, and I greeted her. She walked in the door, and she said, "I got to have my own school." And right there, it just clicked. Me and my wife are a pretty good team. I love my wife, and she loves me about 75% of the time. And together, I knew that the failures that we had faced forged us into the people that we needed to become. And because we didn't give up, opportunities had presented themselves. 10 months from the point that she said that, we had moved out of state. We built the school, our own beauty school. We enrolled students and classes started. And here we are now, 6 years later, we have 2 beauty academies with plans of opening more. So our failures helped us become these people that could manage these types of businesses. Step number 3, pray. I believe in God, and I believe my God wants me to pray. So I will encourage you to pray to your God. And I will say that if you don't believe in God, then take the time to meditate. Because at times we don't have the answers, but I believe that through prayer and meditation that we can gain the direction that we need and be given opportunities in our daily activities to be able to overcome the failures that we're facing. I'm not going to share examples with you today, but I will tell you that I have seen miracles through prayer, and I believe in it, and I encourage you to pray or to meditate. Step number 4. As we face failure, we need to be keenly aware of our failure, and then we need to act with urgency to overcome the failure. So, I coach football. When you have two beauteous schools, you have to look for some way to get around guys. And I love coaching football. This last season, however, was a very difficult season for my team. We had 3 consecutive losses in a row where the same thing happened. We were winning the game, the opponent had the ball, there was less than a minute left, our defense had held our opponent to where it was 4th down, and all they had to do was hold them one more time. And if they held them one more time, we would win the game. And in each instance, our opponent scored and won. At the end of the 3rd game, as I was going home and mulling through my head, how can I help my team understand how to be keenly aware of how we need to act in 4th down situations and then act with that urgency? So I came up with an idea. And I returned to practice the next day, and I gathered them around. And I said, I want you to know how proud I am of you, that you are playing great football. But we have to make an improvement on our 4th down. And if we'll make that improvement, we will win games. So I said, this is what we're going to do. Every time that we are on defense and it's 4th down, on the field, we are going to have a cheer. And it is going to be led by the defensive captain, and it is to be done with intensity and passion so that you understand the situation and to act with urgency. Now, I believe in practicing everything. So I said, right now, let's go ahead and practice that cheer. So the defensive captain led the team in the cheer. And this was the cheer. The defensive captain was to yell, "What down is it?" And the team was to respond, "4th down." And they were to do that 3 times. And at the end of the 3rd time, they were to scream as loud as they could, as long as they didn't swear, because their moms wouldn't approve of that. So this was the effort, though. I said, okay, let's go ahead and practice that. And this is literally what I got. The defensive captain. "What down is it?" The team. "4th down." "What down is it?" "4th down." "What down is it?" "4th down." Ah. Now, I had to teach them that that was not passionate or intense, and it wasn't helping us understand our situation. So I said, look, let me demonstrate what I want. "What down is it? 4th down! What down is it? 4th down! What down is it? 4th down! Ah!" Now, they did get a good laugh at that. They learned to love that cheer, and we did it in every game. And we stopped teams on 4th down, and we won games because of it. But without being keenly aware and taking action, then we don't overcome the failures that we face in life. So, in that, when we face our failure, it's just a line telling us that if we want to run, we need to make changes. And if we'll make those changes, we will learn to stand. And from there, we will learn to walk. And from there, we will feel the joy of running. Thank you.